folks, Griffin Lucier here with a Modern Jund video. It's been a while since last time, been a long while. This is the last time I played Modern Jund in a video here, but it got me, Ignoble Hierarch has really got me, interested in Modern right now. So I've been working a little bit on, how to make a Jund deck work in the format, and this is kind of my first, iteration, trying to figure out, how to incorporate something like Ignoble Hierarch, which is a mana creature, into a deck like this that is set up to not have mana creatures. How can you make that work? And there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, a lot of just kind of theory crafting and trying to figure out, feel out how it's going to work and stuff like that. So there are a few pretty sweet cards from Modern Horizons 2 I'm trying out here. Of course, the Ignoble Hierarchs. Now, it's not a given, right, that you actually even want to play this card in Modern Jund, but I think it's just really powerful. Sets you up for some pretty fast starts. If it trades with an opponent like, Lightning Bolt or whatever, then that's, kind of fine. That's better than, you only spent 1 mana on it instead of 2 mana if it was like a Dark Confidant or Scavenging Ooze or something like that. So, all around, just really great card. Speeds you up a little bit, which is something that we really need in this format. And then we've also got Ragavan in this deck. Now, Ragavan doesn't seem to be, looking across the internet, it doesn't seem like it's in every single Jund list for Modern, but I like it pretty well. It's just super powerful, really good turn 1 play, and kind of sets you up to have a little bit of redundancy as far as these mana creatures go, because it kind of sort of acts as if it's another mana creature. But again, it's another, they really want to try to answer this on turn 1 if you have it, and super powerful. You don't need Ragavan is a card that you don't need an excuse to play it. You need an excuse kind of not to play it, and if you have an excuse to not play it, then more power to you or whatever. But I think that you could do a lot worse than just playing Ragavan in your deck. I only run 2. One is because it's $100,000, and the other thing is that the legend rule. We're trying to play like a value game. We're not tempoing out people. We're not going to be dashing this card very often and stuff. So, we want to. I don't know. The legend rule really kind of hurts us with this card specifically. So, I have found having both in my hand at the same time has been not great. So. I don't know if I want to go more than 2, but as far as the whole deck is concerned, even though it's a really good card, it is kind of underpowered just because it's a 1 mana creature. Anyway, so we've got a discard suite, 2 Inquisition, and 3 Thoughtseize. Now, I think I like this setup because you when you play cards like Ignoble Hierarch, I spoke about this in my blog. You're not really looking to answer 1 for 1 all the time because you're kind of already down a card because you play the Ignoble Hierarch. So you're just trying to bust up their best stuff. And if that's the case, then Thoughtseize is kind of a little bit better for that because it hits a lot of things that are their most powerful thing that's going to try to catch them back up in the game. Be it some kind of counter spell kind of thing, Cryptic Command or whatever. That's a really good card for getting people back in the game. Planeswalkers, and then just a lot of the stuff that goes over the top of you, like Primeval Titan. I don't know, Murktide Regent is a card that I played against today. Those are things that you can take with a Thoughtseize, so they're pretty important. And so if you have Ignoble Hierarch and a bunch of discard spells, you're trading 1 for 1, but you're already kind of down a card with that Ignoble Hierarch, so it's not great. You really only want 1 or maybe 2 in your opening hand. Whereas in matchups or in decks without cards like Ignoble Hierarch, be happy to have basically any number of discard spells. Very happy to just have a Tarmogoyf and 3 or 4 Inquisitions and just be fine like that. We got 4 Lightning Bolts. We've got 2 Blood Chief's Thirst. This is a card that I think is pretty good because it has, it's cheap when you want it to be cheap, but also you can spend your extra mana into it to make it a little bit more powerful. And so I like cards like that when I'm playing something like Ignoble Hierarch that have, variable mana costs like that. So you can hit something cheap early on when you're trying to catch up because you didn't have your Ignoble Hierarch, or you can use it in the late game for full value because you have a little bit of excess mana lying around. So pretty solid card. Gets you out of a lot of tight spots. Let's see, what else we got is Dothy Voidwalker, which has been pretty good. It's nice in that it's like a main deck card that can nuke graveyards and gets you out of some... With a little bit of creativity, it can get you into some really interesting spots, or out of some tough spots. And there's always like the dream of like Voidwalker into Thoughtseize away your Karn or whatever like that. So that's all great. But even beyond that, 3/2 creature with Shadow plays really well with Ignoble Hierarch, and just a lot of good stuff going on there. Clocks them pretty fast. We've got Tarmogoyfs, of course. Okay, I should mention here that I'm playing Witherbloom Command basically because I want to play Renin 6, I think, but I'm a little concerned, and Witherbloom Command was okay in this league that I just played, but as we'll see, probably not as good. But I just wanted to be sure before I blew all the tickets. A lot of tickets on Renin 6. But having said that, Witherbloom Command is actually pretty interesting. It hits things like Amulet, it hits Underworld Cookbook, and it hits just like a lot of different things that are pretty necessary to have. The problem with this card is that there's a lot of the cheap creatures that you really want to get rid of have more than 1 toughness. And, you would imagine that -1, you're able to get rid of most cheap creatures with the -3/-1 ability, but it doesn't actually work out that way very often because of things like, mostly because of prowess, mostly because of, Soulscar Mage and Dragon's Rage Channeler and Monastery Swift Spear getting bigger. So, but other than that, I don't know. I kind of liked this card, but I still think it might not be powerful enough. And Renin 6 is probably just a little bit better. Liliana of the Veil. I'm down to 3. I don't really know if that's right or not, but I don't know. I've seen some other people playing 3. What's neat about Liliana is that you don't have to worry too much about the legend rule. If you have excess copies of Liliana in your hand, you just discard the Liliana to Liliana, right? So, having said that, it's a 3-mana card, double black mana. It's not great in multiples, even though it kind of gets around the legend rule. But it's just a little bit slow. Kolaghan's Command has been awesome. I got a 1 of Maelstrom Pulse. A lot of people swear by the 1 of Maelstrom Pulse. We've got Huntmaster, a 1 of, and Torok. And so we're not playing Bloodbraid Elf. For a while now, I've been kind of off of Bloodbraid Elf. Just, I think that you can do a little bit better. You have to warp your deck around Bloodbraid quite a bit sometimes, and I don't know, I just kind of, ever since Bloodbraid Elf came back into the format, back when it was unbanned, whatever it was, 3 or 4 years ago, just kind of hasn't been performing that great for me, and especially now that there's Torok has been awesome, so I really like that card. And then also, I've got 1 Huntmaster and then 2 more to go in the sideboard. Huntmaster is a great card if you are looking for a card just to just slam and stall the board and turn a game around. Fantastic against aggro decks, and also pretty good in just like value matchups where you are trying to compete for card advantage. It takes 2 removal spells to get rid of it, and they have to get rid of it too, because otherwise it starts flipping and getting out of control. So Huntmaster's a great card. Going over the sideboard again, we're just trying some stuff out. It's a Wild West kind of format, but I really liked Damping Sphere in the league that I'm about to show you here. It hits a lot of different stuff between Tron, Amulet Titan, Storm decks. I even think I would bring it in against stuff like the Crashing Footfalls deck. It kind of hampers Cascade a little bit. Not great, but probably worth doing. Not sure. 2 extra Huntmasters to board in to shore up against aggro decks, specifically because like Torok isn't going to be good against decks where the opponent's probably emptying their hand pretty quickly. But Huntmaster should be good there. Shadow Guildmage, this is a card that I really like and is good against a lot of things, but I'm not sure that those things are really what's prevalent in the format right now. We'll see. What else have we got? A couple Nile Spellbombs, a couple of Collector Oofs. Pretty worried about like Affinity and Urza's Saga kind of stuff. Not that it hits Urza's Saga itself, but like kind of decks like that. Go Blank, just a value card that's also really good against like some incidental graveyard stuff. Say against a deck with Lingering Souls, or against a deck with Seasoned Pyromancer, or stuff like that. You get some card advantage, but also just like a little bit of incidental kind of graveyard hate as well. Whereas like making your opponent discard something with, I don't know, Blightning or something, which is a card that I've played in the past. Like when they discard, Lingering Souls to that, it's like not as good. But if they discard Lingering Souls to Go Blank, then you're in the clear. And then we've got a copy of Engineered Explosives, just kind of catch-all, pretty good against like the artifact decks and cheap creatures. And then Cleansing Wildfire to hit things like Tron, to hit things like Simic Growth Chamber and stuff like that. And you can even bring it in against Urza's Saga decks. So this is where I'm at. I played a league, and I'm going to go over the games. And it's kind of an interesting league. Learned a lot. Played awful. But also a lot of that was misclicks, but a lot of that was like me learning how some of these decks work. And learning how my own cards work. So stay tuned. Hope you enjoy the matches. And we'll wrap up and talk about where to go from here. All right, so here we go for the first match. Now, again, these are pre-recorded. This hand, sometimes you look at a hand and you're like, well, I have 1 land and my mana creature. I should just keep it, see what happens. I didn't want to do that there because there wasn't any way to get through with the Ragavan if I didn't draw a land. It'd be like if I had a Bolt or a Bloodchief's Thirst, and that'd be one thing. So then, see this hand, it's like, well, what are we doing here? Probably playing Inquisition on turn 1, and then Voidwalker or Tarmogoyf on turn 2. And either way, not playing Thoughtseize. I don't think I'm playing Thoughtseize on turn 1. So I got rid of the Thoughtseize, which, I mean, you kind of never know, right, in the dark. When your hand is, like, fine, but you want to get rid of one spell, you got to figure out which spell to get rid of. It's one thing that makes the London Mulligan a lot better for, like, proactive decks than it does for reactive decks. You can just get rid of the like redundant piece of your your combo or whatever, or like the least powerful of your creatures. But here you don't know what it is you're going to be running up against. So As it is, we drew Ignoble Hierarch, which is pretty great. So the opponent on Spire Bluff Canal Island Serum Visions looks a lot like, you know, Storm or something. And then repealing the Hierarch is like, okay, we're definitely up against Storm here. So now the question is, do we play the Voidwalker or do we play Ignoble Hierarch Inquisition? Definitely, not definitely, but I guess I didn't think about it too long. Went for the Inquisition, you know, just possibility of them having like Baral into just like the nuts. So I didn't want that to happen. And it looks like they kind of did have Baral into the nuts, so we got rid of that. And we can replay our Ignoble Hierarch, especially because we don't have land 3 guaranteed next turn. So it would hamper our mana development quite a bit if we didn't play Hierarch this turn. So what's nice here is that they didn't draw a land, so they don't have remand mana up. And since that's the case, we get to blow this up with Liliana. If they had had a land untapped right now, of course, they could remand the Liliana. We'd be kind of in trouble. So one thing about this matchup is that, like, I've been playing this matchup for years. You know, this deck has been around basically for as long as Jund has in the format, and which is to say all 10 years or whatever it is of Modern's existence. So kind of know what we're up against here. I should maybe talk about this play. It's kind of straightforward, but what I did was I cast the Tarmogoyf trying to draw the remand out, even though it was the Voidwalker I wanted to actually get into play. So by doing that, I was able to utilize the 1 green mana that I got from the forest that I drew. So anyway, now I'm trying to figure out what to discard. It could be Liliana, but I think I just want like more discard effects, try to empty their hand as much as possible. So I went with the Hierarch. It's going to make our next couple of turns a little awkward. You know, one thing that's nice about Liliana in a deck with Ignoble Hierarch is that you get to empty your hand out pretty quickly, and so you're like more often you are +1ing your Liliana and not discarding anything because all your stuff is already on the table. So having said that, going on a different route here, but anyway, yeah. So when I play against Storm, it's kind of, you know, we have different tools now, and like Dothy Voidwalker and is kind of throws a wrinkle into the mix here, but it's kind of all the same stuff they've been playing for years, and so it's nice to just like have a pretty good idea of how to play against a matchup, even if, you know, maybe I didn't really prepare for this matchup, or maybe it's not quite on my radar because I'm more worried about other things. You know, lots of stuff going on in the Modern format right now, you know. So, but it's nice to know just kind of like how to attack this deck. So if that was a land that entered untapped, maybe we'd have been better off here, but I do just want to keep plussing this Liliana as much as possible. here we see the Voidwalker doing some work. The Exalted off of the Ignoble Hierarch is pretty great. We get to kind of with Liliana and Voidwalker, you get to kind of see well, my opponent is, they just got rid of something I want to cast with a Voidwalker, so it's like I want to plus my Liliana before I attack, because you never know if you're like, oh wow, I wish, because the Voidwalker has to tap to use its ability. So here we're going to do the same thing, make them discard, doing this before we attack, also because it's going to put a Planeswalker in the graveyard when we make our play here. So discarding a bunch of rituals, kind of getting them from all sides here. Looks like there's no copies of Gifts Ungiven or anything for us to snag with the Dathi Voidwalker, so I would probably, if I was planning on doing that, then it's good to know, before you attack. Opponent packs in here. Right. So going to sideboard, there's some things you got to remember when you're playing against Storm, and again, not that it's probably going to be super prevalent on the not the ladder anymore, but in your modern leagues or whatever, is that they will likely bring in Aria of Flame, possibly, and possibly also Empty the Warrens. I don't know, maybe that's an outdated kind of strategy, but Aria of Flame is pretty likely. So having answers to that is really great. They're also going to bring in more card advantage, just pieces of the puzzle, possibly fact or fiction. So those are really good. So we're going to board out, looks like just some creatures. Kolaghan's Command doesn't really end up doing that well because it hits Electromancer but not Baral. And so you'd think if it could hit Baral, then we'd be off to the races, right? That's really good. But it really, if you can't, I'm trying to make it so all the removal that's in there hits Baral. We've got Engineered Explosives in there as an answer to Aria of Flame or Empty the Warrens. Same with Maelstrom Pulse. Still lots of discard. I added in the Go Blanks. Those are pretty nice. So we've got a lot of good stuff going on after sideboard here. And this is another hand where Ignoble Hierarch would be great. I think Ragavan is even better probably in this matchup because it's a clock as well, and it's going to give us some mana. They don't have a ton of interaction, so it's nice though. Ragavan and these cheap creatures, they let you sort of turn into a Delver deck in matchups where you want it, and yeah, just super powerful to be able to put pressure on and disrupt them at the same time. It's like we're just playing a 1-mana creature and then playing disruptive spells every turn for the rest of the game. Alright, so here's an interesting play. I thought seized first and left myself the option of Bloodchief's Thirst and Lightning Bolt, and I'm trying to remember here. I think I ended up using the Bolt. Right, okay, so I end up using the Bolt, because if they play, next turn they're going to play Electromancer, possibly have a land up, and if that's the case, and I have Bolt in my hand, I only have the one red source, So next turn, if they play, yeah. So now because I have Bloodchief's Thirst instead, we could go Thirst your Electromancer. They remand it. I Thirst again. So instead, they're doing this. And now the sequencing gets a little weird here because if it wasn't for Ragavan's triggered ability, I would just be like, oh, Damping Sphere. That's a whole new element here. If it wasn't for the Ragavan's ability, I would go blank first, then Bloodchief's Thirst, because you want to make them discard before they have all the information. But we'll see what happens here. Like, maybe I don't actually even like want to cast the go blank anymore after I hit them with the Ragavan. Maybe I'm gonna hit, Serum Visions or something like that. Change my mind on what to do. So now the choice is go blank or Damping Sphere. Feeling pretty safe about our ability to not die next turn. So make them discard some stuff while they don't have remand available. I think they just ended up discarding both copies of remand. So they've got Gifts Ungiven, another card, and just 2 lands right now. And I misclicked through my attack step. Pretty good stuff. The opponent is F6 though, so we're good to go. It's not even the 2 damage, it's really the treasure and the potential card off of the Ragavan, but I feel like we're in a really good spot, even if I'm just, throwing away damage left and right. So there's an Electromancer. That means they can cast Gifts Ungiven next turn, potentially. But the Electromancer is pretty scary, so I'm willing to trade Ragavan. The opponent says no. So that's pretty awesome. We got a nice spell off of that opt. Don't have enough mana anymore to hit the ooze, but it should be fine because we have the Voidwalker in play. Yeah, the opponent packs it in there. So Storm, kind of same as it always has been. If you kind of plan ahead for it, you're going to be fine. You'll be able to win most matchups, but they are really scary, really explosive, a really consistent deck too, and just something that's like when it's popular, you're gonna want to be ready for. I was pretty fortunate here that like a lot of the things that I wanted to have in the deck for the metagame I was kind of predicting happen to line up really nicely here. They can get, Storm gets hit by Graveyard Hate pretty nicely. They get hit by discard spells pretty nicely, and even like just removal spells for their Barals and Goblin Electromancers. That stuff is really good against them too. So that's kind of the whole deck at the moment. So worked out. Again, not sure how prevalent Storm is going to be in the modern leagues, but good to get this one. Let's go to the next match. Alright, this is the second round, and this is a doozy. This one was quite interesting. A lot of stuff going on here. On the draw, Ragavan, Voidwalker, some disruption, removal stuff. Looks great. I think a long time ago, Reed Duke said that when you're playing John, you're looking at your opening hand, whether or not it's good. If it looks like it can beat something, then you're in fine shape and you should keep it. In games 2 and 3, you want to be like, okay, well, can I beat, Tron here or Affinity or whatever with this hand? And when you know what you're playing against, you should mulligan a little bit more aggressively. But this hand looks like it could beat at least quite a few different decks, We have a quick Ragavan. We have plenty of removal spells. Just a lot of good stuff going on here. And so it's like, I'm going to keep this even though if, what if they have Primeval Titan? Well, I'm going to lose, So, hand is pretty solid. Opponent is on, looks like some kind of mono-red Chalice of the Void deck. So it's kind of like, although it doesn't have snow lands, so it's not the Scred red deck from a while ago. Have the option here of using Cleansing Wildfire. And I didn't think it was worth it because it would take my whole turn. I basically get a card and I'm not like hitting anything. It's not like one of those lands over there is Urza's Saga or some, something good. They're both just mountains, so. And in addition to that, Liliana starts to look really good when you have cards in your hand that you just can't cast anyway. So because of Chalice, I know that this Bloodchief Thirst isn't going to be very good. So. The Pyromancer brings one token with it. That makes it a little awkward for our Liliana, because what would be a great play here is just Voidwalker minus and hit the Seasoned Pyromancer, but we can't do that. So what we can do is put the Voidwalker into play and set up a, we'd have a pretty good block right now. Good to have fetch lands against Blood Moon. I'm glad we played the Voidwalker when we did, otherwise we'd be kind of in trouble. So here, we don't have any one-drop spells. So I'm just going to go for the Kolaghan's Command, draw step play, and nuke this Pyromancer as well. Kolaghan's Command looking great in this matchup. And so we could save the Liliana here, the loyalty on the Liliana, but like I'm pretty interested in getting in with the Ragavan and getting treasures because it's a good way to play around this Blood Moon. So I'm less concerned about the ultimate on Liliana. Could be a mistake. But it was a route I decided to go with, you know. We could like... And now I'm going to hit this elemental because I have another creature. Then I'm going to want to make them sacrifice it. Left of the Wooded Foothills in my hand because it doesn't really do much under the Blood Moon. So I might as well just discard it to Liliana later on. Here's something I should have done, though. I think you're supposed to... I was talking about it before. You're supposed to discard with your Liliana before you... attack with Dothy Voidwalker, but it's not going to matter too much. Although, what I could have done there... See, I could have made them discard, seen that it was Boom Bust, and then cast the Bust, but that's kind of foreshadowing for what's going to happen in the rest of this game here. So here's Karn, and it's not going to be enough, but my opponent makes a pretty funny play. Kind of cute, but... And I wouldn't say that Ragavan like won the game by itself, but having the turn 1 Ragavan was very nice here. So in come the Collector Oofs, Engineer Explosives, kind of a Nombo with Collector Oof, but it's, you gotta do what you can, I guess. And then I kind of like to go blank is probably good in a matchup where the opponent has Seasoned Pyromancer. I kind of like taking out Tarmogoyfs, or at least trimming on some of my graveyard synergy stuff, because these decks will pretty often play Relic of Progenitus, and Relic of Progenitus is just like the best thing against Tarmogoyf. It's really hard to... It's not like hard to win if they have Relic, but it is really good, especially if you draw 2 Tarmogoyfs and they have Relics. This hand's not great, but we've got the Voidwalker, and we've also got a swamp and a forest, so there's a lot to like here. Having said that, I did see Cleansing Wildfire in Game 1, so it's like we actually only have one more basic to fetch. And Torok is not great against Blood Moon, but we'll see what happens. Liquimetal Torque. Had not seen this card. But it looks like it's going to be really good. Just like any mana rock would be really good here. So. And so I think, looking back, I think that, I don't know if it cost me the game here, but if I had gone for Bloodstained Mire into Swamp instead of just playing the Swamp. I think I might have been better off. We'll see what happens. But now I don't even have the chance to fetch for that basic Swamp. So like right now I could have 2 black mana. Problem is that 2 black mana doesn't actually cast a Turok anyway, so, you know, what are you going to do? Again, I think I'm supposed to use this Kolaghan's Command before I attack with Dathi Voidwalker. Again, like I said, learning how to play these cards. Something that's Modern Horizons 2 has struck me as a set, like, you know, Modern Horizons 1, a lot of cards went into the format or whatever, but like a lot of those cards in Modern Horizons 2 are tricky to play. They got a lot of different things going on with them. And, you know, Ragavan was one of them. Lots of different things it can do. Urza's Saga. I've had opponents like mess up against Turok a lot. So there's just kind of a lot of stuff going on with the cards in this set. So here, if I had another Swamp, I could cast Thoughtseize this turn. It's possible I should have anyway. Possible I was supposed to just play Scavenging Ooze and Thoughtseize here. Now it's going to be pretty hard to cast this Thoughtseize. So, Pyromancer with no cards. Collector Oof is nice though. So we upgrade the Collector Oof. That's fine. Here's a Spellskite. That's fine. Then my opponent, I think they attack here. Which is a little crazy to me. So now we have this Dreadbore. Could have played it there. Maybe that was the right play. Getting for 3 extra damage. So I think, if I remember right, I ended up just Dreadboring the Spellskite anyway. I was hoping to get them to a situation where they had to block, felt obligated to block, and then I would have the Dreadbore left over for a Karn or whatever. But yeah, so maybe, you know, they'd be at 10 now instead of 13 if I had just gone for it last turn. The other thing is that, like, if I was to draw Kolaghan's Command or something like that, then I would have wanted to leave the Spellskite in play, or rather, you know, save the Dreadbore for something else. Pretty good turn for the opponent. This is actually a pretty big mistake, because I kind of forgot that the Spellskite was over there in the opponent's graveyard. If I was to draw a Kolaghan's Command right now, then I would want to rebuy that Collector Roof pretty badly. And there goes my green, so... be tough to get out of this one. So we have to attack and then get through 2 tokens before they draw anything. I guess if I had drawn like explosives here, it would have been really good for us. So it's another instance where, like, I guess it's good to go back and look at these games and be like, oh, explosives would have been good here. Maybe I need to play more copies of that, you know. Or this other thing that I had was actually not that great, so I need to play fewer copies of that. Kolaghan's Command looked like it would have been really, really good at every draw step in this match. So, you know, it's an artifact deck with a bunch of cheap creatures. I think Kolaghan's Command is going to be really good there. No surprise, but opponent's kind of getting the lock in here. Not too much we can do anymore. So there goes our swamp. It's the last swamp. So I guess we're on mono red the rest of this game. Okay. So, and again, like explosives, not very good when the opponent has Karn in play. So, didn't really have any outs there. So, notably, I didn't see any copies of Relic of Progenesis, so I brought the Tarmogoyfs back in. Seems a good thing to do. Turok, never had triple black. Beyond that, trying to come up with 2 other cards to take out here. I guess the oozes weren't that good. They were okay against the Seasoned Pyromancer, but like they are pretty. They need a lot of green mana. Can't really depend on that with Blood Moon. So great hand here. Ignoble Hierarch into whichever 2-drop we want. Looks pretty good. So here's the thing. probably did that wrong. I probably wanted to play Wooded Foothills into Forests. And also, it's possible that I should have just gotten Overgrown Tomb anyways. Tough call. It's like you can. It seems like this deck, the opponent's deck, just doesn't play Lightning Bolt or any way to just like 1-for-1 away an Ignoble Hierarch. So since that's the case, you can kind of like depend on having it around. All right, so Boom Bust enters the Exile Zone there. Now we're in a weird spot here where it's like, do I play a Tarmogoyf? I know they have Anger of the Gods in their deck. I think the right thing to do is just Inquisition them. Of course, I was supposed to, if that's the case, you're supposed to Inquisition before you attack. I think what really happened was like, well, I'll just play the Collector Roof, and then I kind of changed my mind or something. But wanted to make sure that like they didn't have too much in the way of like me of like getting rid of my mana sources here. Fortunately, they kind of do anyway. I think the right thing to do on my turn 1 was to go fetch Overgrown Tomb, and then on the second turn fetch Basic Swamp. Because right now I've got a Forest. It's kind of not doing too much. Although, I don't know. I guess I haven't said that. We have a hand of Collector Roof and Tarmogoyf. Take the Seasoned Pyromancer and get rid of it. So now, they've got some options here. Looks like they're going to Shatter Skull the Ignoble Hierarch. Fair enough. Ignoble Hierarch, sorry. So here they're going for Chalice, which is pretty interesting to me. Instead of Pillage on, like, the Blood Crypt or something. So, this is the turn that actually kind of is make or break for the whole league for me. We'll see what happens. Well, looks like a great plan. We know our opponent's hand is Pillage and Chandra, right? Plus one other card we don't know about. I'm thinking we play this Collector Roof. We use our Voidwalker to cast Bust and destroy all lands. And we just try to finish the game out with the Tarmogoyf and the 2/2. Two of their lands will live, because they have 2 lands right now in play that are indestructible. But that's actually okay, because we have Collector Oof. And so when I go to use the Voidwalker, there is a bug I learned later on Magic Online where you can't choose split cards. It will not allow you to choose a split card with Dathi Voidwalker, even though you should be able to. And so now it's like, oh god, what do we do? So I spent a long time like kind of looking at this. I'll skip ahead a little bit, trying to figure this out. Oh, there's me taking a screenshot. So eventually, I just have to get the Seasoned Pyromancer. Although, you know, getting my opponent and having 5 power into play would have been the match. So now it's like, okay, well, I guess I get rid of these, and you know, I'll get a Seasoned Pyromancer out of the deal. Which is really kind of too bad, because if I had done that pre-combat, then my Tarmogoyf would have been 5/6, my opponent would be at 7, which, as we're about to see, would have been like a very important... it was a very important number to be at. So the opponent casts Fury, which I do think is a sweet card. 4 damage players you choose among any number of creatures or planeswalkers. And we know their last 2 cards are Chandra and one other thing we don't know, I guess. So they're going to hit the Collector Oof, and they're going to hit the Pyromancer, because they know... So the Collector Oof leaving turns on their bridge. Now they can play Chandra. I'm going to add 2 red mana. To play a Liquid Metal Torque. Okay, so now... So of course my opponent would have been at 7 right now if I had done the Dathi Voidwalker thing pre-combat, but instead I did it post-combat. You know, just assuming that I was going to be playing Armageddon. So as it is, now it's like, well, do I go for Chandra? I put them at 7. I've got 7 power on the board. Got to try and figure out like what gets them out of this. And it's also important to note that they have Seasoned Pyromancer in their graveyard right now. So, my opponent, I remember my opponent for some reason like tanked here for a long time, but the play here is to pretty sure the play here is to attack Chandra with the Goyf, attack opponent with 2 elementals, puts them to 7. We have 7 power on board, and then we cast Go Blank, get rid of the Pyromancer. Get rid of the Seasoned Pyromancer, which is what I'm going to do here. Could have played another Tarmogoyf, but I don't think that like really helps us that much. So the opponent top decks Karn, which is pretty nice for them. Now, I guess I haven't gone back and looked. I don't think there was anything better I could have done here. Possibly I was supposed to not go fetch a swamp when I cast that Go Blank. I was supposed to get like an Overgrown Tomb, maybe? So I could cast 2 spells this turn. Trying to figure out this attack here. Okay, what did we end up doing? We attacked and then they blocked. Yeah, attacking Karn. Attack Karn down to 4. So now what? They're going to probably fetch something like Ensnaring Bridge. Or they're going to fetch some kind of artifact, so... So now we're just like on the hunt for an answer to the Ensnaring Bridge. Having said that, because they don't play their last card, the Elemental's going to attack. I think this is wrong. I think I was supposed to play Ignoble Hierarch here, Because Ignoble Hierarch can actually attack into an ensnaring bridge. Kind of didn't think about that at the time. I pillaged away my red source, which is interesting to me, but whatever. Oh wait, yeah, that's why I didn't cast Ignoble Hierarch. Alright. So what ends up happening here is, I mean, we'll kind of skip through it because what ends up happening here is the opponent has me locked down under the bridge. They're at 7. I'm trying to make something happen with like Witherbloom Command here. Maybe draw some lightning bolts. Possibly, you know, find a way to get Kolaghan's Command or something. They ended up doing a play here where they cast Anger of the Gods. And they did actually get Relic of Progenitus. Or draw a Relic of Progenitus. So that's really bad. Got rid of my Tarmogoyfs. And kind of just didn't have much else going on. They ended up just killing me with Seasoned Pyromancers. So, luckily though, I was able to send in, you know, a screenshot and a description of what had happened. If you're ever playing Magic Online and a bug happens like what happened to me earlier there, you can send it in, you know, you fill out a little form, and I think that I'm going to get, you know, reimbursed for it for this match. Because, yeah, the Voidwalker, I was supposed to be able to cast Armageddon there. I think I could have done either that or the Pyromancer play and won the match. But Moto got me. So, again, like, you know, not a match that you're going to, like, see very often, right? Not something that's like, oh, wow, I got to make sure I pack my sideboard for mono-red Karn artifacts. But stuff like that comes up. There's plenty of decks that have Blood Moon, and there's plenty of decks that have artifacts, and it's just like you need to be. It's nice at least to be prepared for that kind of thing, and you know, there's like this is kind of like similarly to the Storm deck. It's like you're not going to phase it very often, but people have been playing that deck for, I guess not that deck specifically, but like red control prison decks for a while, and you know, Chalice of the Void, Trinisphere, or whatever, and it's something that comes up every once in a while. So you know, that's definitely a data point as far as like I would like to have more artifact removal in the deck, like more Kolaghan's Command. Witherbloom Command was okay. And then Blood Moon is pretty nasty, depending on what you're doing. But, like, you know, Ignoble Hierarch made the Blood Moon matchup a lot better. Ragavan made the Blood Moon a lot better for us. So it wasn't that big of a deal, but a little bit more extra security against Blood Moon would be nice too. So that kind of means like Abrupt Decay, more fetch lands, easier mana costs, like Turok isn't especially good against Blood Moon, but just kind of all things to try to remember for when we're tuning the deck for the future. So yeah, let's head to the third match. Okay, round 3, looking at a great hand. Mountain into Soulscar Mage. Pretty scary. Hand is really good, but one thing we're missing is like a Lightning Bolt or a Bloodchief's Thirst or even like a Dreadbore. But Ignoble Hierarch into like either Thoughtseize plus 2-drop or whatever starts to look pretty good. I wonder if in reality what I was supposed to do there was, I kind of do this too often, was where I like think about what I'm going to be doing on turn 1 and then kind of forget about the card that I'm going to draw. I think maybe I was supposed to play the Ragavan instead of the Hierarch here. But as we're going to see, there's nothing, nothing we were supposed to do differently here, I don't think. On turn 2, I got attacked for 5, and they cast a Stormwing Entity. So now the question is, do we like Thoughtseize plus Dreadbore? Do we Ragavan plus Dreadbore? Do we Kolaghan's Command? You have 3 cards in their hands. The problem with Kolaghan's Command is that like it uses our mana pretty effectively, but it's not dealing with their biggest threat. But also, like, if we're going to use Kolaghan's Command to get rid of the Soulscar Mage, we're going to want to do it like as soon as possible, because we don't know when they're going to draw. You kind of never can guarantee that your 2 damage spell is going to be able to actually take out the Soulscar Mage. So, doing what we can here. Plan is to play Dreadbore and possibly Ragavan next turn. Not the worst hand from the opponent. Just going to go throw that out there. So here's Dreadbore on that guy, and then Ragavan. So if they whiff, then we can at least block and trade with a Swift Spear. If they don't whiff, then we can chump block the Swift Spear. That is a not whiff right there. So, fair enough. These prowess decks, when they have a good draw, are really nice. So here I'm looking at my sideboard, and between Soulscar Mage and Monastery Swift Spear, doesn't look like Shadow Guild Mage is going to be that good. So didn't bring it in, and if that's the case, then like Witherbloom Command isn't going to be that good either, which is kind of too bad, because you gain life, erase a little bit with the life drain ability. I guess we're keeping it in. Cut the Thoughtseizes. Worry about our life total. Sand looks pretty good though. That's a problem. Especially if we're going to just go ahead and draw Ragavan. It's not ideal. Pretty free to go ahead and snag a mountain here. So at least the Ooze could be able to get rid of the Lavadar at some point. So, K-Command looks good. I don't want to make them discard, because like, what if they discard? I guess all they have is instants right now, just one card type. I guess there's no like enchantment land artifacts or anything that they could have, but I do want to get this ooze back. Seems like it could be useful. You can use it to get rid of the lava dart that's in their graveyard, and then you can cast Ragavan. Bunch of different options. Expressive Iteration has turned out to be really, really good. Opponent with nothing really going on. Only one mana here. So we could do that ooze, take the lava dart, and play Ragavan play. But I think I'd rather play this Huntmaster when we have the chance. Buffer our life total a little bit. Requires a removal spell. The hand looks good. Swift Spear is a good one, though. And a bolt to go along. That's nice. So, lots of stuff we got options for here. Maybe bolt. Maybe bolt. Okay. Problem is we're kind of short on red mana here. I think I kind of screwed this up too. I think I was supposed to just snag that lava dart on my turn. Make them make the decision whether they're sacrificing or not right away. And it would cut them... you know, they sacrificed a mountain that they had already used for mana. I kind of wasn't sure if I wanted to do that play yet, or if I wanted to try to start gaining life, you know, make Scavenging Ooze bigger. Probably a mistake. Probably should have just gone after that lava dart, especially because I know I have Ragavan in my hand. But I did it in response to the Dragon's Rage Channeler, just because I didn't want them to get extra surveil attempts. And now here's another play. I think I screwed this up too. So just on a really good set of turns here, where we start to activate. They're going to respond with Bolt. I don't have enough green to play around the Bolt. So since that's the case, you know, I'll just, whatever, I'll get another life point here. But the problem is that what I should have done, I think, is Dreadbore first. Then they can't get the Surveil effect off of the Dragon's Rage Channeler. So now we probably Dreadbore and get in, right? Or you could play the Ragavan. Sure. Try and race a little bit. We have 4 points of damage, and they have to attack, so even though it's a 3-3, it's kind of a brick wall. It's like the race is on whether we want it to be or not. So. Bolt the Ragavan. That sucks, but it's better than Lava Dart. So now, I think we Dreadbore the Storming Energy. It's you know, the Surveil on the Dragon's Rage Channeler is pretty good, but so is the Prowess on the Storming Energy. Plus, we get in for 2 damage this way. Nothing much else we can do. The problem we're running into with Witherbloom Command is that just like it's just not able to do anything right here because they have Delirium. It's going to drain for 2, and it's going to get us a land or whatever, but like nothing like useful is coming out of it right now. And if your removal spell is not effective against like kind of the de facto aggro deck of the format, then that's a problem. It's been, you know, Witherbloom Command has been pretty neat here and there. Did some useful stuff, but as it is, I think it's probably not quite what we want in this format right now. That could certainly change. There's a lot of different ways in which, I guess, like different metagames in which like it would be really handy to have a Witherbloom Command, but I don't think it's this format as it is right now. Opponent's at 6 and is gonna Bolt Face, so not the greatest sign. So, yeah, just kind of got run over there. Sorry. They're fast, and I don't think that as the deck is set up, we're like very well equipped to win this match. They don't give you a lot of time to get out from under their fast draws. They're really consistent too. Like a lot of scry, a lot of card draw. The expressive iteration is really good. Dragon's Rage Channelers, you know, you got to deal with them fast. So I think that we are lacking in removal spells, stuff that's fast. You know, would have loved to have seen more copies of Lightning Bolt, more Bloodchief's Thirst and stuff. So that's something to note going forward, is having an answer to Storming Entity, but also having answers to these cheap creatures here. Possibly something, you know, more Engineered Explosives would be good, because most of their stuff costs 1 mana. So Explosives would be great. Bolt is really good in this matchup, obviously, but, you know, I wish I could play 7, but I can't. But more cheap removal and more like sweepers for cheap creatures would be nice too. So definitely another instance where more copies of Engineered Explosives would be good. So we're going to go to round 4. All right. So sorry, just looking at my phone while I'm recording a video. This is a hand where we've got removal and we've got Liliana and Tarmogoyf. So I'm not going to throw that back. And here we have a really good reason that we would want to play Witherbloom Command. And we get to hit an Amulet of Vigor. So that's pretty clutch. Having said that, not out of the woods yet. Urza's Saga is an interesting one. So now the question is, do we get down Liliana? Do we try to play Tarmogoyf? What to do here? Going with the Lily. Trying to get it up to a whole bunch of counters. Threaten the ultimate. You know, they could have like a Zusa or whatever. We could have, you know, the Dryad. So you have a Zusa. It looks like if they have land Titan, then they just have land Titan next turn. In fact, I don't think they even need another land. And so this is, we're going to learn a pretty important lesson here. Foreshadowing. So trying to decide what to do here. I think we tick up, and the plan is to hit a Zusa with a Kolaghan's command, and then my assumption here was is that they would use this Urza's Saga with a trigger on the stack to make a token, right? But I'm not so good at the counting, and it looks like they already have all the mana they need. So what I did was I made them discard and kill the Zusa. I mean, you know, you want to get a Zusa off the table. But what does this mean? They're going to go fetch another amulet. So now my opponent has 6 mana available to them, and an Amulet of Vigor in play. So that means I'm pretty much dead. So what could we have done differently? Well, could have ticked down on Liliana, get rid of the Azusa. As it turns out, I'm really not sure what they would have done, but they could have tried to make a play where they go get that amulet, cast Azusa, their second copy of Azusa, and then we, like, I don't know, maybe, like, with it on the stack, hit their amulet and make them discard or something like that, or maybe, like, let the Azusa resolve, and then there's a lot of things we could have done, but I think it was really important to use the Kolaghan's command on the amulet that they played, or that they fetched for. And so I won't be doing that again. Now I know that is the artifact they're going to go get. They're not going to go fetch up a Mishra's Bauble or anything like that. They're just going to go get amulet and kill you with it. So luckily we have a lot of discard. Cleansing Wildfire, Damping Sphere, all that stuff is really good. Have Witherbloom command in our hand again. This time we're on the play, so that's going to be nice. Wait, I think we were on the play last game too. So Amulet is one of the. I like to check out MTG Goldfish and see what are the most popular decks being played and stuff. Amulet is one of the most popular decks in the format at the moment. It looks really good with this Urza Saga build. I'm going to play Witherbloom Command, and this time we fetched, so we get the guaranteed land out of it. Getting a land, same as Ren in 6. Doesn't seem like getting a land is that useful, but when you have Liliana, it's all useful. So, and it happened to be Castle Locked land, so we'll take that. Now the opponent is in the spot where it's tough. I think playing this Urza Saga on turn 1, you got to do what you got to do, but then they're gonna lose it here in a second. So. I want you to be prepared because I'm about to make a misclick and you're going to see it coming from a mile away. And just want to let you know it's going to be okay. But I felt pretty dumb when I did it. It's going to be on my next turn. But it's going to be okay. The opponent fetches an amulet, has Gruul Turf. Now they have... I think they're trying to set up something where they can... I don't really know what their plan was here. But, I don't know. Getting that Dryad into play, it's something. Opponent gets Foundation Breaker, which is really interesting to me. Make you sacrifice a creature. And now we're on 4 mana, so the play is just slam that Turok, right? But Dolly Voidwalker and Turok both have very similar art, so I clicked on the wrong one. And now I feel pretty dumb. So that might just cost me the match, but we'll see what happens. Handweir Battlements. So, since they're not doing that, well, let's play Turok correctly this time. Make them discard. You want to, you get an extra +1/+1 counter if you do the Liliana activation while Turok is on the battlefield. They discarded Foundation Breaker, so I'm just going to use it to get rid of this amulet. And we got there. I think that they weren't quite dead, but if their hand was Titan, they needed another green source there, and then they would have been able to cast it. I'm not really sure. With no amulet on the battlefield, though, we were looking good. Probably should have had explosives in game 2, but I didn't. So, Inquisition, Tarmogoyf, Dathi Voidwalker, Liliana. None of our real good stuff for this matchup, but never really going to turn down Discard Spell into Tarmogoyf into Liliana. So, going with the Urza Saga. So, I think I'm going to play the Voidwalker here. Because my plan next turn is if I draw a land, I can play Liliana. It starts to look really good when you have Liliana ticking up and they have a hand of multiple Titans, and it's just I really want you to discard one. Normally that would be really bad for you. Be like, okay, I'll just discard a redundant Titan, and then when I get up to 6 mana, I'll just cast the one I have left. But here with Voidwalker, it's well, do you really want to discard that Titan? Because I'll take a 6/6, So putting him in the squeeze here a little bit. If we draw a land, which we did. So they get a token, and they also can get another token. They can get... They're going to go get Amulet. So we'll see what they choose to do. Double Urza's Saga draw, probably not the greatest for them because they're kind of lacking on green sources here to try to activate this Castle Garenbrig with. I think that was their plan to try to activate the Garenbrig here for 6 mana. Instead, they're just going to make another token, and you got to do it now, and try to get after this Liliana. So now we're looking good. So what we're going to do is make them discard. Right? Because we've got them in this squeeze, right? Where they don't want to pitch a Primeval Titan, but they might have to. And so they did pitch Primeval Titan. I wonder if their hand was actually just like 3 Titans and a Gruul Turf. So now the play is... try to get this Damping Sphere onto the battlefield. Damping Sphere really good against Garenbrig and against the bounce lands. The problem is that if you play Damping Sphere, you can't really play anything else that turn, or if you do, it gets taxed. So I had to kind of sequence my spells in a little strange way here. But yeah, there's the Damping Sphere. Opponent can get a lot of mana by getting an Amulet here. But the problem is that the Gruul Turf is only going to add 1 colorless mana each time that it gets activated. So there's 2 triggers of Amulet or bigger on the stack when they play it. But everything costs more because of the Damping Sphere. Everything adds less mana because of the Damping Sphere, and we've got a 6/6. So that went well. Amulet is a matchup that is tricky for sure. Really, really scary. Kind of like Storm, except that there's less you can do about it. They don't have to have a bunch of stuff going on. They just have to get up to 6 mana and cast a Titan and kill you with it. So it's the kind of combo deck that is really scary to play against and really difficult to play against. But that being said, the way this list is set up, it worked out pretty well. Discard spells. The Voidwalker was awesome. And some incidental artifact removal was very nice. So yeah, and the Voidwalker, you get that kind of same effect as Voidwalker into you discarded your Primeval Titan, and all of a sudden I have a Primeval Titan now. So I don't hate the matchup. Intrinsically, it is pretty bad. This is a ramp combo deck, and it's playing against a deck with cheap creatures and cheap removal spells that's supposed to grind you out. But Primeval Titan is just a 20 for 1. You can't really beat that. So it's you would think that this is a pretty bad matchup, but because they have so many intricate little parts to try to maximize their Titans, it makes it so that you can kind of disrupt those little pieces and sneak away with some wins, unlike against something like Valakut, where it's just all they have is lands and Titans, and there's nothing you can do. So I like this matchup better than I like Valakut. And if this matchup is the go-to like big mana deck, then it's beatable even if it's difficult. But if the big mana, the go-to big mana deck is Valakut, then we got problems. As it is, it's okay. It's an uphill battle, but you can do it if you know what you're doing and you build your deck accordingly. So that gets us to 2-2 technically, but 3-1 if you consider the Moto bug. So going into round 5. Okay, round number 5. This is the type of hand that I really like. I don't like to keep, but it looks pretty. It looks pretty good here. Without a threat, without any kind of pressure, I really just kind of. It's tough to keep a hand that doesn't have any type of pressure or planeswalker or anything like that. That's a draw Liliana off the top. Looks good now. Since I did that, I wish I had gotten taken away the counter spell out of my opponent's hand. It's like a blue-red Delver deck with Expressive Iteration. Again, just like that card is so good, I just want to try and take it every single time I get the opportunity. It's possible I was supposed to actually just jam the Liliana into the counterspell there. Help empty my hand, maybe get Castle Lockbane going. Here's a Ragavan, and they're leaving up counterspell mana. So, that's trouble. Clearly don't want that to hit me. If I'd drawn something useful here, it would have been nice, like a 1-mana removal spell at some point would have been really great, or another discard spell. As it is, I went with Maelstrom Pulse because it's like, okay, well, I'm going to play the worst of my 2 3-mana removal spells here, and then be better off, next turn if it resolves. But that's not going to work out super well for us. However, I don't think anything really would have worked out that well for us. So now it's like, man, I really wish I had Maelstrom Pulse, but alas, we do not. What we do have is big Turok, which is nice. And they attack with the Ragavan. Which I understand why they do that. It gives us some outs, but we're not going to hit them, I don't think. May as well try to see if we can draw Dreadbore exactly, but no. If we had like a bolt there, then we're actually in like okay shape, to be honest. We would play, Bolt the Delver, Liliana minus on the Regent, and we'd be fine. Or a Bloodchief Thirst would have done it. Dreadbore would have done it. So we had some outs, didn't hit them. I think I had 6 mana there, so a Kolaghan's Command or a Pulse or another Lily would have done it too. So this deck looks like Shadow Guildmage is actually good against. Delver, the Channeler, the Ragavan, all that stuff has 1 toughness, so it looks like Shadow Guildmage might be good. And lots of this kind of deck might play the Sprite Dragon too, I guess, maybe? Not sure about that. Good looking hand. Removal spell into Tarmogoyf into Liliana. Can't really say no to this. Plus we got Huntmaster on the top end if we get that far. Just gonna go ahead and bolt this thing right now. I think we're free to fetch a forest here. Opponent is digging a lot. Not great sequencing here. I think I'm supposed to play Liliana and discard first. A couple reasons. One, my opponent could discard like another, you know, a Tarfire or something like that. Not super likely. I don't know. Jason Mind Sculptor, whatever. Also, so I could have gotten more damage with the Tarmogoyf that way. If I had made them, if they had like responded to Liliana's ability with cracking the Mishra's Bauble to get more information to figure out what to discard, then that also kind of would pump the Tarmogoyf. And now here's a play where I'm activating Liliana before I attack. They lightning bolt the Liliana in response to get the Delirium, or to get the Surveil trigger, and then by doing that, they put the Liliana in the graveyard, making the Tarmogoyf bigger. Now they're at 8 instead of 9. So it's just like a lot of little things with Tarmogoyf when you're playing it to like think about how can I maximize the amount of damage that it does when I go to attack. So it means mostly like playing stuff pre-combat, even though that's kind of like not how you normally would play. But then like, you know, it's similarly like in Magic, like nothing's like, you shouldn't just always do it like that either, you know? You never really know what's going on. Alright, so they have a 8/8 flyer for 2 mana. Pretty cool. I like the design of that card. So they're trying to dig, and they're actually going to just like concede here. Because we do have the win on the board. But they were pretty close to stabilizing there. It's such a big creature. I ended up cutting, I cut the Dathi Voidwalkers from in this matchup, which is kind of like counterintuitive because you know, they have a big Delve creature. And they also have Dragon's Rage Channelite. So there's more going on with their graveyard in this deck than there is in the Prowess deck. So I guess I went with the Nile Spellbombs. The problem is that Dathi Voidwalker, if they really want to, they just bolt it, you know. And it doesn't block. It doesn't block a Ragavan or an Unflipped Delver. So I don't know. It's tough when they have a deck that is like uses the graveyard, but not so much so that like that's really important for you or for them. Starfire, pretty cute. So I'm concerned here. I think I'm supposed to Witherbloom Command here, but it's not what I ended up doing. But again, yeah, the command just doesn't look very good here. It's kind of too bad. Like, if I was to play Renin 6 and minus, then that would be, like, kind of fine. They would, you know, get up to a 3/3 because a creature enters the graveyard. That's not the worst thing in the world. I went with the Spell Bomb instead because I wanted to get rid of all the cards in their graveyard before I cast the Witherbloom command. It's kind of, I think I just kind of messed this whole sequence up, but they also, like, there just kind of wasn't that great of a way to get through this. And not to mention that, like, I'm going to just, like, kind of draw too many lands here. So now they don't have any lands in their graveyard, but they do have 2 Surveil triggers. If they are to play an instant. And they have a Scalding Tarn in play. So it's not out of the question that they can just get Delirium in response to the Witherbloom command. So what I did here, this was probably a mistake too, taking the Expressive Iteration instead of the Counterspell. Because now there's a sorcery. If they counterspell anything, it'll be an instant. They have the 2 Surveil triggers and they have the Scalding Tarn. So now I really can't use the Witherbloom command. If I had taken the Counterspell, I would have been able to use the Witherbloom command, but, like, you know, to what end? Like, just leave them with the iteration in their hand? Like, that's not really that good for me either. So, in reality, I mean, the best thing to do here was to just, like, have more copies of Engineered Explosives in my sideboard and just kill both of these, no questions asked. That would have been really nice. Instead, what ends up happening is they use their counterspell to go up and get Delirium anyway. Now I'm sitting here with Witherbloom command in my hand that doesn't do anything. So, again, having to play against these new cards, the Dragon's Rage Channeler, the like the Murktide regen, it's just like a lot of the practice, a lot of the stuff we're doing is trying to figure out how to build the deck, but we're also just trying to figure out, like, how do you play against this stuff? This is just, like, you know, a lot of different cards that are all brand new and they're all really good, and they just, like, require new training. The opponent cast Counterspell on Witherbloom command. That was just... It was just straight up Blind Hunter active trigger. But anyway, having said all of that, 8 lands, I don't know if I was going to get out of that one no matter what I did. But probably need to play that a little bit tighter just to give myself a chance there. We could get another couple of turns out of that. Maybe we could draw a Huntmaster, draw a couple of removal spells to nuke those, to nuke the last Channeler. Maybe my opponent floods out, whatever. So, yeah. So that was the 5th round. Again, kind of similar to that Prowess matchup, though. Like, just needed some more early stuff, more ways to deal with their cheap creatures, ways to not fall behind. And you could tell in game 2 when it was like I wasn't on the back foot. I was doing, like, you know, able to cast my stuff on time and you know, keep up with what my opponent was doing. Then we were doing great. I mean, you know, opponent was stuck on 1 land there, but they only missed that land for a turn, and then they got right out of it, and then they were back to business. But just, like, keeping your opponent is trying to keep you off balance. You're trying to stay on balance. If we're gonna use that metaphor, I guess. And if you can stay on balance, then you're in pretty good shape because you just have really big creatures and good removal spells. So as long as like we have enough cheap stuff to use to get rid of their creatures, then I like where we're at. So let's talk about that. Let's kind of wrap up and talk about the deck moving forward. All right, so let's wrap up. Deck felt okay. I was kind of surprised both in that I was not able to keep up with the aggressive decks, but the combo kind of decks, the decks that had like a lot of little interactions. I played against Storm, I played against like an artifact-based red deck, and I played against a amulet deck. And those actually went pretty well. So having said that, there's like always more you could do to try to predict the metagame. Be like, okay, I'm going to knock out Amulet with all my land destruction spells or whatever. But I think that I like where we're at as far as the like combo decks of the format go. But the aggressive decks seemed like they were still problematic. So what to do there? Well, I would have liked more copies of Engineered Explosives. I think that would have been really good in just about every matchup. Possibly even Engineered Explosives would be the main deck. But so far it's looked really good. And yeah, more copies of Explosives would be good. Shadow Guild Mage, card I love, probably not good enough. Probably we just want more cheap. Like this is probably where we put in the Engineered Explosives. We just cut these for like 2 more Engineered Explosives. Damping Sphere looked good. I liked Damping Sphere. I liked the Hunt Masters, the extra Hunt Masters. I think like this is a pretty good like split for our 4 drops or whatever. If you wanted to go to 3 Toroks or whatever, that's fine. Maybe like Hunt Master could be, I don't know, Courser of Krufix or another Scavenging Ooze or something. I thought the Oozes were okay. I liked the Voidwalkers. I thought the Witherbloom commands were not good. I've decided after having played and watched and played previously with this deck, I think that's got to be Renin 6. What does that mean though going forward? Like, well, I think we need more. There were some times when Witherbloom Command was very useful, and when that's the case, by cutting it, we're going to be losing those percentage points. I think like that Amulet matchup, we would have lost if our Witherbloom Command had been Renin 6. So, if we change this to be Renin 6, then what are we doing to help us against like the Urza's Sagas and Amulets and all that stuff of the format? I think I would like to see some Abrupt Decay in the deck. I like our cheap removal suite here, but I would like more cheap removal. So I think I want to do something along the lines of make this Maelstrom Pulse into an Abrupt Decay, make these 2 Witherbloom commands into Renin 6. I do like a Dreadbore, but maybe this is just supposed to be an Abrupt Decay as well. And maybe even go down to 2 copies of Liliana and 3 copies of Kolaghan's Command. Kolaghan's Command also pretty strong against stuff like prowess creatures. You just can get like a lot of value out of that, and there's just happens to be a lot of artifacts in the format right now between amulets and Urza Saga tokens. Just kind of a lot of what's the cookbook, So, having said that, I do like the Oozes. I love the Ragavans and the Hierarchs. I think they're great, and I like having at least quite a few like 4 drops to really push into. As far as like the rest of the sideboard, even the Collector Oof against like the artifact deck, it wasn't even that good. So I'm thinking that this should be maybe just good old Ancient Grudge. Maybe By Force, something like that. These cards actually seemed pretty good. Didn't run into like any dredge decks or whatever, but I think that these are going to be fine. And I don't want to mess with those. And the Wildfires also seem like they're going to be good because of Amulet decks. But I think that moving forward, I should change Collector Oof to be maybe just Ancient Grudge, maybe something else. And then these Shadow Guild Mages into 2 more Engineered Explosives. And then change these things right here. The mana seemed great. I like the Locthwains. I don't think it's a format where you really need like Raging Ravine, and you don't want to have stuff enter the battlefield tapped if you can help it. But also, your life total is pretty precious, so you don't want like Nurturing Peatland. I think Castle Locthwain is just kind of better, even though it's more expensive to activate than Nurturing Peatland. You kind of get more mana. Or it costs like less mana overall because it like stays in play. So that's where we're at. I think these 4 cards are coming out, and I think these 4 cards are coming out. That is the next step in my testing process. And I will see you for the next one. Thank you very much for watching. Pretty busy these days. Can't guarantee when the next video or stream or blog post or whatever will be. But I appreciate you watching, and see you next time.